For me to introduce a central banker is known in the market, both foreign exchange and debt market. It's none other than Mr. Padmanabhan. He is Executive Director of Reserve Bank of India. Mr. Padmanabhan has over 35 years experience in Reserve Bank. In addition to banking supervision and regulations, he is known for the supervision, regulation of foreign exchange debt markets. Here I would like to add, it is not only supervision and regulation. He is a market man. He is a person who looks ahead and his heart is close to the development of market. This is what Padmanabhan is. He is a postgraduate in economics. He is an associate of Indian Institute of Bankers. He has done his master in business administration from Birmingham. I have seen him since 1993 that his contribution to seminars and workshops like is immense. Whether it is banks chairmen or head of treasuries or debt markets, all are eager to hear Mr. Padmanabhan. The reason behind that, they always carry value out of Padmanabhan's speech. I recall the first time I heard him in 1993 when I was in Vaishya Bank. He was speaking about risk management and managing the foreign exchange risk, as well as how we manage the asset liability management. I still remember the value addition. In fact, at the time I was young and I was the chief dealer of the bank, most of the time, and we always used to feel the chairman called Mr. Padmanabhan, it is something to block, something to stop us. But now, person who is accountable in Almas for risk managing, I appreciate what Padmanabhan was deliberating on that. For me, Padmanabhan is three P's. Padmanabhan, his passion, he has a passion for the market and progress and performance. This is what Padmanabhan is. When it comes to any clarification about matters, Reserve Bank, supervision, or anything about the market, any issues, if you call him over phone or if you send email, no doubt he will beat Google. The speed is so much. You will experience the same experience, whatever I shared. Sir, I request you to take over from now.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction, Venkatesh, and good morning to all of you. These are days when central banker is put on the defensive even when he comes for a keynote address. I think Venkatesh has already done that. What I propose to do during the first part, because what Venkatesh told me was that I share with you some of my thoughts about the issue of risk management and going forward, what could be some of the new way of looking at things that we can possibly, which I would like to flag. And in that respect, I think the central banker has a unique position. He can come into any kind of hall, flag issues, go away, don't give answers, you discuss and come out with answers. So some of these issues which I have been debating, for which I have never received possibly a clear-cut direction in my own mind how to move forward, I would like to flag. On a more serious note, if some of these issues could be debated in the second part when Venkatesh said that I need to interact with you, that I think probably will be a good way forward. Now, first of all, my general comments overall, I think, ever since 1980s, if you're talking about, Venkatesh started from 1993, but capital flows to emerging economies have increased substantially, both on account of push and pull factors. Now, if you take the pull factors, they include the strong growth that the economies have been exhibiting, inflation getting moderated, macroeconomic stability, the gradual different countries follow different paces of opening up the capital accounts. All these have attracted, these were the pull factors. More recently, on account of the stance of monetary policy in advanced economies, I am sure that every one of us go to bed every day thinking what the Fed will do tomorrow is a major push factor, and the loose monetary policy resulting in huge liquidity and its search for a higher yield, again attracted large capital flows to the emerging market economies. As we all know, I think ever since I started speaking on the issue of risk management, the volatile capital flows have always been a subject matter of debate, particularly in a market which doesn't have that kind of depth and liquidity. Now, many emerging countries started blaming the West for an inward-looking monetary policies, and our present governor has been leading that debate, which forced these countries also to follow, which forced the emerging markets to follow extraordinary steps to deal with the fallouts arising out of the large inflows as also the outflows. Now, to substantiate whatever I have said so far, just look at this data. The net FII flows into India, which had turned negative at about $14 billion in 2008-9, turned sharply positive to $32 billion during 9-10, and again to $30.3 billion during 10-11, but again came down to $17 billion in the subsequent year. Now, during 13-14 also, the net FII flows came down sharply to US dollar around $5 billion from $27 billion in 2012-13, although the FDI, ECB, and the NRI deposits, mainly on the back of the innovative FCNRB swap facility that Reserve Bank of India introduced, increased during the year. Now, as we all know, such large volatility in capital flows poses significant risks, well in excess of the current financing needs, because these capital flows are much beyond the current financing needs. And this would lead not only the currency appreciation beyond what is dictated by the fundamentals, whatever fundamentals are defined as, and more active monetary and macroeconomic management, but this could also lead to high domestic credit and monetary growth, boom in the stock market and other prices, and general excess domestic demand, leading ultimately to macroeconomic and financial instability. Now, the abrupt reversals in capital flows cause more problems, and as demonstrated during the recent global crisis, as also during May-August 2013 volatility phase which we experienced, the reversal of capital flows from EMEs are very quick, necessitating a painful adjustment in bank credit and collapse of stock prices and sharp exchange rate depreciation. Now, such reversal also result in the contraction of the central bank's balance sheet, which may be difficult to compensate with the accretion of domestic assets. Now, these developments can then lead to the banking and currency crisis and large employment and output losses and huge fiscal costs. So this is what the central bank and the governments are always worried about. Now, one related issue that often gets debated is whether the foreign exchange reserve accretion is a part answer to the problem. Probably I would talk more about it because my colleague who is here alerted me that one of the issues that you wanted to know is how prepared Reserve Bank of India is to counter whatever Fed does. I will answer that. Two comments here. First, the quality of reserve is itself an issue according to me. I mean, the reserves that accrue through the current account surplus is of a different kind vis-a-vis the reserve built under a current account deficit scenario, which is all what India has always done. Second, while it was commonly argued before the crisis that many Asian countries were wasting resources in accumulating large foreign currency reserves, it has been widely noted that countries with large reserves fared relatively well during the crisis, and forex reserves have provided a self-insurance during the global liquidity crisis. Those countries that built up the precautionary reserve holding were able to avoid large depreciation in what we call the panic of 2008. Now let me turn to the Indian story. How has India managed the external sector challenges? We are already convertible on the current account since 1996. The few restrictions are only to prevent current account transaction from being used to camouflage as a capital account transaction. Thus, external sector management is mostly about capital account management. The next question that arises is, why should we have capital controls? Firstly, our macroeconomic condition is not very conducive for a completely open economy. Inflation is high, or is, at least we can say that it's not consistently low. So is the fiscal deficit. You have seen in the past how vulnerable the exchange rate is to external and also to domestic shocks. We most of the time welcome capital flows, but during 2008, even excessive capital flows became a burden. Most economies that opened up the capital account too fast had destabilizing episodes. The Latin America, Asian tigers, all this you are aware of. And even as I speak, Argentina is dealing with its own problems. So therefore, some degree of capital control, everybody agrees, is necessary. What is the degree? Now, we no doubt need capital inflows both to finance our current account deficit and to provide resources to support high growth, particularly the requirement of infrastructure. The challenge is how to attract quality capital flows for all this without its destabilizing impact. Let's not underestimate this problem. I shall be very happy if all controls are removed, if somebody is going to hold the baby of instability whenever it appears. Unfortunately, every time that happens, the central bank of the country. Now to some specific issues. How do we have a sustainable current account deficit? We cannot do much about imports without affecting our growth. Crude, fertilizer, metals, plant and machinery, all these are essential, will have to be taken as given. Therefore, we have to expand our export sector. How do we achieve that? But please understand, Reserve Bank itself has a very limited role in this, except perhaps the export finance, where we are engaged in refinancing against the principle of central bank doing sector-specific activity. There is also a need for concerted efforts from all the stakeholders. One opportunity was provided by gold. We Indians have an insatiable appetite for gold. We impose certain restrictions. It had an immediate impact. But the question is it sustainable in the long run? Already there are reports of increase in smuggling activity. There are other undesirable consequences like Hawala trade, etc. And as I speak, understand that after this gold restriction came about, there is a premium of almost ₹1 in the Hawala market. Now, social norms have to change. We have to wean people away from gold to other financial assets. We must have better schemes for people who are prepared to give up their gold. But the question is, how do we achieve it? In capital account, the emphasis on inflows of the right kind. We do not want short-term flows, particularly the debt flows that are basically motivated by interest rate plays and which are volatile. Thus, in the pecking order, FDI is most preferable. Now, for a long time, I must admit that even in the respect of FDI policy, we seem to be putting too many restrictions, and the most important restriction in my mind was the way the central bank and the government thought they could decide at the price at which the buyer and seller could do this transaction. So for a long time, the pricing guidelines were onerous. It led to all sorts of problems. So one of the important changes that we did was to take away this pricing guideline, to take away any kind of restrictions on these pricing guidelines and make it market determined. But however, there is a question. Now, as long as we have a different kind of policy between the FDI and the FII, I mean the external commercial borrowing, there was always a worry that one could come in the guise of other. So the question is, we still have a restriction that there cannot be an assured return to an FDI investor. It's an equity, you will have to take the equity risk. But the question is, or the issue is, that is not how the options are written. You know and I know that option has to provide a downside protection. Now, one of the policy options that Reserve Bank of India is considering, and if you have any kind of suggestions, they are welcome. How do you allow some kind of a downside protection at the same time ensuring that that liberalization does not cannibalize the entire ECB or the external commercial borrowing route? So this is a difficult balancing, but we are trying to find some kind of an acceptable formula so that the market can move forward. Now, as far as the Indian investments abroad are concerned, that's the other way the capital moves. It's relatively free. There was a bit of a tweaking done when the markets were volatile and everybody blew it up as a capital control that Reserve Bank of India had introduced. We have never understood it internally, because a capital control is like typically what Malaysia did. After you invested, you were not allowed to take out your investment. That was never done. We said that your automatic route gets reduced from 400% to 100%. That was touted around as a capital control. Doesn't matter. That's behind us. We have restored it back, and market is happy about it. Now, finally, I come to the markets before I flag my issues. Here, there may be a perception that Reserve Bank of India stands in the way of market development, irrespective of what Venkatesh told about me. Please appreciate that exchange rate is an important macro variable. Any sharp movement creates panic as it affects a large segment of the economy. Volatility feeds on itself, and when rupee moves sharply, agents take evasive action. Others resort to speculation. How do they do that? Probably the answer could be through the derivatives, starting with the foreign exchange forward contracts. Therefore, it is necessary to have some control lest the exchange rate runs any which way, and we have adopted a simple measure: access to derivative market only if you have an exposure. Now, is it time that we go back and revisit this? Over the years, we have brought in various relaxation, past performance, rebooking, etc., etc. And today, with the currency markets, futures markets being liberalized, probably it is time that we take a look at how do we move forward as far as this documentation, the kind of requirement of a exposure which has crystallized, whether it's time that we start relaxing those issues. This is the first issue. Now, in this context, there is a fundamental issue with the currency futures market. If you still ask me, I would think that